Dolby Atmos is completely redefining the way that we experience music, and if you're not paying attention, you might already be behind. How far away are we from things just being Dolby entirely?
We're a lot closer than
people
you probably
realize?
think, yeah.
Oh man.
Because the thing about it's not, to answer your question, probably like 5 to 10 years.
Wow. I recently had the chance to sit down with Skyler, the engineer behind the Grammy-nominated Dolby Atmos mix of Shaboozey's A Bar song at Island Sound Studios in Hawaii, where he broke down why the Dolby shift matters, how it's shaping the future of mixing, and what you can do to stay ahead. In this interview, we explore the industry-wide impact of Atmos, the gear he uses to mix Grammy-nominated records straight from his bedroom, and the best advice for new engineers looking to leave their mark. I actually want to dive a little bit deeper, Skyler, into the whole Dolby thing, because I feel like, personally, if I'm being honest, I don't think I fully understand it yet. And I feel like a lot of people are maybe in the same boat. But if you could like break that down to me like at a third grade level, what is Dolby? And let's start there.
Dolby is music and surround sound.
Okay, so as opposed to just being left and right, it's all around you.
Yeah.
How feasible, or is it even possible, for someone to create Dolby mixes from home and maybe necessarily not be in a place like this?
Yeah, you have to. You need to start somewhere. Like, that's what I always tell people who, when they're like, oh, should I start to get into it? I don't really have all this stuff. I mean, when I first started, like, it was when it first came out, there was no information out there at all. And I just got a call from somebody that, hey, I need a Dolby version of this song. And it was a huge record. And I'm like, all right, I'm going to figure this out. So I sat there for probably 4 days in a row, just researching like anything I could possibly find that would give me an inkling of what I need to do to get this done. And I ended up figuring it out, but it was just the lack of information. Thankfully now, you can go on YouTube, find somebody like yourself who does great tutorials, and you're going to be in the game. But you have to practice, and you have to everybody's afraid to get into it because it's like, they don't want to mess up.
Oh, man.
But you have to mess up. There's no other way to do it, There's no other way to do anything in life. You got to mess up a little bit. I've messed up plenty of times, but you learn from it and you move forward, and then you can put yourself in a position to then not mess up. We're transitioning from stereo to this new thing, kind of like how mono was transitioning from mono to stereo back in the day.
Yeah.
Now we're in that weird phase of like, a lot of the older people, they don't really like it because they just don't see the point. But there's gonna be a point, like the advances in like AI and with headphones, cars even. I heard a Dolby Cadillac car the other day.
At NAMM, right?
Yes, that was like, as technology and as plugins and softwares, as those things start to develop more and more, you're gonna start seeing the stereo fade away.
You think so? Yeah. You think we're just gonna be at a point where it's just all immersive surround?
Yeah, absolutely. It has to be. That's where everything is going. You have to think about it like Apple CarPlay, right? Apple CarPlay was something that you could only get in a luxury car 10, 15 years ago, and there was only like one car that had it. But then once that one car had it, now the domino effect starts to happen, and then people are able to hear it this way. And once you're exposed to it, if you've ever been in a Dolby room, you understand what it is. Everybody will tell you that. But the argument is always like, how do we get a Dolby room to the customer?
And that, I think that it's huge, because when we first kind of met, you took me to ClearTrack, which was actually the first studio that I ever toured when I got into like the Tampa area, but I hadn't heard a proper Dolby mix until I was in that room. And it's just, you have to just try it.
Yeah.
I can't explain it to you. Yeah. And it's different also from like, I would say, I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong, but like putting in maybe like AirPods and you have the head track and stuff, being in a room that is built for surround is a whole different experience.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying is like, you get this whole other experience that nobody's really felt before. And as it becomes more accessible through the advances in technology, that's where you're really going to start to see the transition happen. A lot of people think that it's going to fade away, but it's not. It's already here. The money's been spent. The infrastructure is built. Now it's more about fine tuning and starting to weed out like some of the things that don't translate well. Same back in the day when they were transitioning from mono to stereo. There was a lot of things. There's mixes from huge records back then that sound horrible because it's just, that's what they had,
What would you say, and I mean, I know what I'm asking, but like if you had to maybe scope this out, how far away are we from things just being Dolby entirely?
We're a lot closer than
people
you probably
realize?
think. Yeah.
Oh man.
Because the thing about it's not. To answer your question, probably like 5 to 10 years.
Wow.
Five probably. But
And that's not that far.
yeah, it's not that far. But the reason that is because it's not, Dolby isn't just surround sound. It's like an algorithm-based thing. Dolby Atmos recognizes what speaker system you're playing your song on and folds it down from this huge immersive mix down to stereo. That's what it does on your iPhone.
What's the difference, like mix-wise, or like maybe sonically from a mix that is done in Dolby, listened to in a Dolby maybe environment or headset or whatever, versus like folding it down to stereo? Does it still sound like a stereo mix? I don't think I've ever, and maybe I have, I don't know.
Most of the time it folds down sort of like a pre-master is kind of what it sounds like. So if you like mix a song and then you send it off to mastering, obviously it's going to be a lot louder, it's going to hit harder, it's going to have all those things. Since those tools aren't really available or needed yet for Dolby, it's not here yet. That's why I'm kind of like, you know, as technology gets better and these plugin companies start to get better and they start to like understand how to operate around this. There's a few that are doing really well, like Sound Particles is really cool, but
Yeah.
I'm talking more of like all the mix bus processing, all the mastering processing, all that stuff. It has to get better. Because a lot of people's drawback with Dolby is like it doesn't sound as pushy, it doesn't sound like as hard.
That's my thing too. Yeah. Every time, and I've actually, I'm gonna admit this out loud, but I've turned it off on my AirPods because it doesn't like give me that punch, that feeling that I get with like a stereo.
Yep. And that's, you know, it's for a variety of different reasons. It could be the mix, how they did the mix may not have translated. Like there's a lot of settings in there that you have to make sure that you understand. But that's why I say like get started now, understand what it does. Even if the song doesn't come out, you could still practice and understand so that as this transition is happening, you don't get left behind, because that's a lot of people who are like kind of like, I'm not gonna really mess with that. Like they're just losing jobs left and right. They don't even realize it's happening.
So right now, out of the amount, and just to give everybody context here, Skyler, he's signed to Empire, by the way. I don't know if we mentioned that. So he's doing mixes for bigger artists. Out of the mixes that you're doing now, what percentage are just Dolby versus like stereo? Or is it a case where when you do Dolby, you also do stereo at the same time?
It just depends. I'd say it's probably 50-50.
Okay.
You know, some of the time they just don't have the budget to do the Dolby. Some of the time just the artist doesn't want to do it, you know, because they don't understand it either. It's not just the people that are working on the music that are like afraid of Dolby. It's also the artists, because they're afraid that they're going to get one of those mixes back that makes the people turn it off.
Yeah.
And they might, you know, that's the scary part, is like you really don't know because it's the wild, wild west right now.
Do you use plugins the same way in a Dolby mix as you would like in a stereo mix?
In a lot of ways, yeah. But the problem is that a lot of them can't really do exactly what you're used to with stereo mixing. So there's like some ways you have to kind of work around it, depending on like the stems that you get. Like a lot of the plugins can't. In Dolby mixing, there's two different things. There's objects and then there's bed elements.
Okay.
So the bed elements are typically what those plugins that are coming out now, that's what they're going for. Like they're just controlling the bed. But and what I do, and the way that I found to be the best for Dolby, is to use the objects. And that's a lot of other Dolby mixers do the same way. They use the objects because you have more control over the spacing and like just how the song translates.
What are you using? Because I know you also mix like from your house, from your bedroom, right?
Yeah. So I have a whole 714 system. I have the Antelope Galaxy 32 interface, which you don't have to buy an extra monitor controller for. That was like the reason that I bought that at the time. There's probably better ones now or just easier ones to get a hold of, but at the time it was just what I could figure out that I could use.
I use some of the speakers that you use for Dolby as like a second pair. I think you use the IK Multimedia iLouds, right? The MTMs?
Yeah. Shout out to IK. Like they definitely hooked it up for me to be able to get those, and I've just been using them ever since. They're perfect. One of my friends, Rich Keller, he uses them too, and he just did the Tweaker song.
He did the mix for Tweaker?
Yeah, he did the Dolby for that. And
yo, shout out to him.
Yeah, he's a total legend in the audio world.
Yeah, those speakers are really, really good. Probably some of the better ones at the size that they are in.
Yeah.
Because they're not huge either.
Yep, that was the selling point for me, because I know I wanted something that I could kind of take anywhere. Since we move so often, like I just needed something that was going to be mobile, that I knew I could set up and tear down really easy, and they come with calibration, so you could just calibrate the speakers yourself, and then, you know, there's a little bit of like math that you have to go through as far as like the distance in which they have to be from you and like the time alignment pretty much. But it's not anything too crazy.
If you had someone here, like a younger engineer who was just starting out, what would you tell that person? They're beginning their journey, knowing what you know from the years you put into your career, but also now being fully immersed, no pun intended, into Dolby. Someone new's coming up to you. What's some of the advice that you would give that person?
The best advice I could give is just check your ego and don't go into any situation thinking that you deserve anything out of it or anybody owes you anything, because they don't. You know, you have to kind of just be consistent and find motivation in yourself, because it can be tough to navigate this industry, especially when you're younger. You know, a lot of people will try to take advantage of you or put you in positions that you probably shouldn't have to be in, but it's really all up to you recognizing those situations and understanding that, you know, it might be uncomfortable for a second, but you gotta like kind of pivot and push towards what your goals are.
That was an incredible conversation, and I hope you got as much value from it as I did. Huge thank you to Skyler for sharing his insights, and if you want to follow his work or book him for a mix, then you can find him on social media at Skyler the Engineer and over at Engieneers.com. Also, a huge shout out to Kyle at Island Sound Studios for letting us use his amazing space. I actually filmed an entire tour of the studio while I was there, so if you want to see that, then let me know. Friend, if you got value from this, then do me a huge favor and hit that like button and maybe even the subscribe button so you don't miss what's coming next. Thank you for tuning in, and I'll see you on the next one.